Okay with you, Gil?
Yep, sounds good to me. I just started the recording, so we should be good to go.
Okay, so this meeting's going to be recorded, so it'll be available. So we'll get started. I'm Amy Birch, and this is Liz Tufnell. And we are traffic engineers, and we're consultants that work with NDOT with the traffic calming program. So we're glad to be here and tell you about Chickasaw and the traffic calming program. And if you're on the WebEx, if you've joined virtually, we're glad to have you here as well. And hopefully you can hear us okay, and we'll just carry on.
Yes, I will be helping out the chat room. So if anyone virtual has questions, feel free to put them in the chat or unmute yourself and we can hear you guys.
Yeah, so we have speakers here so we can hear you if you're on the virtual, but you can keep your mics on mute for the time being. And then if you have questions, definitely raise your hand or put it in the chat box and let us know, and we'll answer those questions. But we will get started. I think. My slide advance is not working, but we will do this one way or the other. There we go. All right. So thanks for coming tonight and spending some time with us. We'll be quick so that you don't stay here all night, but we're here to answer questions. But let's start with what the 3 E's of traffic calming are. We talk about education, letting people know about traffic calming devices and things and reasons to drive slower in the city on residential streets. Enforcement, obviously that's police enforcement, and we have limited abilities to do that on every single residential street in Nashville. So we really work together with the police department because they do serve that purpose, but they just can't be everywhere. So what we do with NDOT is actually the engineering of it. How do we modify streets to physically modify streets to slow traffic down and make it safer to walk and bike. So traffic calming is specifically for residential streets. So not your Gallatin Road or Dickerson Pike or those types of bigger roads that carry a lot more traffic. We are specifically looking at residential streets. Those are the streets that could qualify to receive traffic calming. And traffic calming is physical solutions for the roadway. So we'll get into exactly what those are, but these are things installed in the street or beside the street to slow traffic down. And what we're looking at is we're trying to reduce vehicle speeds to make it safer for people that are driving on the street, walking and biking on the street. And we do this on a street basis. So we're looking to slow traffic down over a longer distance, not just on one little spot. So we are a street program. This is a street program, not a neighborhood program. So we're focused on specific streets where that need has been demonstrated and how do we apply our traffic calming tools that way. We implement devices to reduce speed and increase safety. That's really what our goal is here. So what we do have some limited sources, what we can apply to the street, and we'll go over all of that. But really we're here to help address the problem that has been observed on Chickasaw. We do have NDOT has other programs that you may be interested in, so we want to highlight those things. The Hub Nashville is really the one place where you need a service request in your street. That's where you go. So you can call 311 or you can go to the Hub app or hub.Nashville.gov and put in a request. And these things might be potholes or a sign's been knocked down and you saw that, traffic light is out, NES street light is blinking or out. That's where you can go and make that known to Metro government and get it fixed. Then there's the walk and bike program. And excuse me, we've got Miss Anna German's email and information here, and she is the walk and bike program manager. And so she handles, all things about biking, walking, sidewalks, and things like that. So if you're looking for bike lanes on your street, that would be a good avenue. And then things, beautification, things like neighborhood cleanups and things like that, that you could reach the Beautification Commission. JD Lane is that contact. So this program is very popular, extremely popular. Right now, we have about 426 neighborhood streets that want traffic calming or have been applied for traffic calming. And we do about 25 to 24 neighborhood project selections every 6 months, roughly, about 50 a year. So right now your neighborhood was announced with a recent selection of 24 neighborhood projects. So how did we come up with those projects? We have 426 streets that want traffic calming. How do we decide which streets get the funding, get the attention, and improvements that are needed? So we have a prioritization process, and it's based on a 100-point scale, but we really say that it's about 70% about safety. And that's where you see the 50% based on the measured speed on the street, 20% on crash history on the street. And then we have another 2 categories that are more about active transportation, if there are sidewalks on the street or not. A street that doesn't have sidewalks definitely gets points allocated in that category. And then also neighborhood destinations, is the street close to a park, a school, places where people, in close proximity, about a quarter-mile distance, are pedestrians likely to want to walk to. So that's how we do it. And we have a 100-point scale. And Chickasaw in the last round, I believe, scored 10th. So it was selected. And, we pulled all this data together based on the application. And I just want to show a little data for you. We did measure the speed on Chickasaw. While it's posted 25, we measured the 85th percentile speed to be 38 miles per hour. And the 85th percentile speed is a measurement that we traffic engineers look at, but basically it means 85% of the traffic that crossed at that time when we were counting was going that speed or below. So 15% is going above 38 miles per hour. The daily volume is about 1,000 cars a day. And it's kind of a narrow street. It's 21 feet wide, no sidewalks on there. This is just a map showing kind of the location of Chickasaw. It's your street, so you know exactly where it is. But we show this so we see the connectivity, what's happening there. And that is the limits of our project too, just focused on Chickasaw. And there were no other streets on your applications requesting traffic calming. This was strictly Chickasaw request. So now I'm going to go into the measures that we typically use on traffic calming. So our first one is called speed cushions. These are rubberized devices that are modular. We can form them and drill them into the pavement. And they are typically done in series or sections of 3 or 2. We have someone joining in the meeting, so we'll let them get settled. Come on in. So the speed cushions are, they have some pavement markings on them, as you can see in these pictures, to have reflectivity and give you some visibility of them. But we like these because they work. They slow vehicles down. They also, you see, they have these gaps so that they allow some emergency vehicle response to not be as impacted by the slowing of speeds over them. They are 7 feet long and 6 feet wide, and they're typically comfortably driven at about 20 miles per hour. And when we install these, we're looking at spacing of sets of them. So we're typically trying to put a couple, depending on the length of the street, in a series. So we wouldn't try to just put one set. We try to get them so that we can attain a consistent speed over the distance of the street. And they are usually or always accompanied by warning signs that also indicate the appropriate speed to travel. So another tool we use, you probably have seen these on the signs, at least on Jones near your street, the radar feedback signs. We use these on streets that maybe aren't the right street for the vertical measures in the street, like speed cushions. So higher classification of road that carries maybe more traffic, but we still want to slow it down. We will use these in those places. And the other picture that you see here is the some zigzag pavement markings, and those are used often for just alerting drivers of upcoming places in the road where we'd want to slow down, like curves, hills, or in this case, a crosswalk. And I think there's some of that on Jones as well. We also do narrowing. This picture on the left was kind of a wider street, and it's just striped out some of the extra pavement to constrict the road and slow drivers down. The picture on the right is actually 51st Avenue in the Nations, which this is kind of not really traffic calming like a neighborhood street, but it is an example of narrowing the street with a road dias, because that was 4 lanes and now it's 3 with bike lanes. But creative ways, and it's always dependent on how wide the street is. Your street is very narrow, so that this is not really a tool that we'll use exactly. Speed tables. This is another vertical device that's drilled into the pavement. Speed tables are longer, so they can be comfortably driven at a higher speed than the speed cushions that we talked about earlier, more like 25 miles per hour to 30 miles per hour maybe. They are flat on top so that vehicles can, their wheelbase can sit on top of the device. So that makes it a little bit smoother of a travel over them. And traffic circles are, these pictures show the circle in the middle of the intersection, and you kind of drive, counterclockwise around them so that just like you would a roundabout, but that slows vehicles down through intersections typically. And these are, they're really hard to use on a lot of our streets in Nashville because you have to have just the right circumstances to be able to install one of these. You've got to have wide radius because we've still got to have vehicles be able to travel around it. So, but we look to use them when we can and where it makes sense. Another tool that we've used or have in our toolbox is our chicanes. And really, it's just a way to modify the road to add some curvature to it, make it kind of serpentine, if you will. And that's done by bump outs in the roadway. If we have a wide street like these pictures are showing, you can do bulb outs like alternating and create kind of a curvy road that vehicles have to drive slower on. So I'm going to talk about the process and how our program works a little bit. You can see I've highlighted the meeting 1, that's where we're at now, but it starts with the application. The residents are able to get together and apply through the program. We have 2 application windows per year. They're usually around January and July or August. And that's how streets that's how we get to know which streets people want traffic calming on. And then we do a lot of data collection, and we get into the prioritization that I talked about in the selection process. So we'll go out and we'll collect traffic data on all the streets that have been applied for in that round, if we didn't already have good data for that street, and run it through our prioritization model and select those 25 streets per cycle. And then we'll look at conceptual designs for those selected streets. Then as the selection process goes, and we contact those applicants and council members to let them know that a street's been selected, then we set up this meeting. So this is our first meeting to tell you about the program, to talk about our toolbox that we talked about, and talk about the concept plan that we've put together. From this meeting, we would go into, we would take some feedback that we hear here at the meeting and refine our design as needed. And then, if there's large changes between what our original concept is, then we may need to have a second meeting so that we can share that information and the plan again. And then from there, we get into our online ballot. And this is how we identify that there's support on the street for the traffic calming plan. And I'll go more into the online ballot a little bit later in the presentation, but basically it's an online process. We used to have a petition process, but now it's online, and it's a finite window of time. So we want to find out if there's support for the project and get it done right soon after that. So the goal that we're looking for in this online ballot is 66% of votes cast to be favorable. So we need 66% of the people that vote to be in favor of the project. And you all got your mailers in the mail, right? So that's how we do the ballot process as well. You get a mailer about it. So then at the end of the balloting period, if the ballot is successful, we will move forward into construction and order the materials. We don't keep them all on hand because we're doing so many at once, but we get those materials in and install the devices with the on-call contractor that NDOT has. So, it's not like we have to bid out each one of these projects. It can go a little faster than that. So, are there any questions about the program and toolbox? Yes.
How long is timeline from meeting 1 to?
That's a great question. So the question for anyone that was on the call is, how long is the timeline from meeting 1 to construction? And with this round of projects and selected projects, we're really trying to condense that because the ballot is going to help us do that. And this is our first round to do the ballot, and that's a 6-week period. Typically construction from the close of ballot to construction is about 3 to 4 months. And so, we add our 6 weeks on there. And then, if we need a second meeting, a little bit of that. So we're looking at around 6 months to 8 months. We're really trying to get it, closer to that with this online ballot. But a lot of that is based on, are we agreeable with the plan before we go to ballot? Any other questions? Were there any questions on the chat box, Liz? No? All right. So we have, like I said, we have put together a concept that we can show you. And this is for, discussion. But I will kind of walk us through it. But what we're looking at here are deploying speed cushions on Chickasaw. And we've cited a couple of places. Well, there's 3 on here that we think could work. Chickasaw has some grade to it. It has 60-foot lots with driveways that are offset from each other. And I think I mentioned earlier when we were talking about the vertical devices, but if I didn't, we space those at least 15 feet from a driveway. So that has to help dictate where we can put them. So that did come into play when we're looking at where we can put speed cushions on Chickasaw. So if you can't
Can I ask
read
a question?
Yes.
I'm on Chickasaw. My question is, you're talking about 66%. What's that from where to where? What percentage of the neighbors do we need to petition to sign on
That's a-
to this?
Great question. The ballots for this plan, would go between Jones and the Ellington Parkway Bridge.
Okay,
So it's
Okay.
all the properties that are, that have frontage on Chickasaw.
okay. From Jones to the Ellington Parkway Bridge, which is about a little past 920, which is where I am. Okay, great.
And,
And those are owners, right? We've got to get owners to sign on to this.
that's correct. That is
Okay.
correct. Property
Okay.
owners
It's only 66% of the folks that register
that respond.
that respond. So it's not, so if you didn't respond, you don't get a vote.
That's right. That's right. That's why we give, a
How-
pretty long
yeah, how
time
many-
to vote.
Okay. How do we find out how many people have responded, or what's the time to respond, or?
So I'll jump on to this slide real quick. This is, so.
Thank you.
Looking for, yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. Thanks for your questions. So it's a 6-week balloting period. So our postcards will go out. They'll have a date at the top, which is sort of the start time for the ballot. And it'll be very clear, that we're looking for a vote, and you can vote for or against it. That is one great improvement we like from the old petition way that we had, because you just signed the petition if you were in favor, and we never knew if there was people in opposition or if they just weren't reachable or absentee landlords or something like that. So we mail our ballot mailers to the property owners, so they have the opportunity to vote. So that we get that list from Metro's maps, and the 66% is based on respondents. So 2/3 of respondents in favor of the plan, then it's approved.
So
Or
we'll
it's
get
successful.
another
You will get another mailer. The mailers they'll look similar to the ones you got for the meeting. They'll have a
Right.
QR code to access the online ballot. They'll have a URL, a tiny URL also to access the ballot. And they will have a unique identifier that's associated with your address. So, not everybody can just log in and vote. You have to plug into that, that unique identifier on the ballot.
Is that mail-in?
It's online, but that's a great question. There's also NDOT contact information. So if you don't have access to internet, you can pick up the phone, and there's a phone number you can call and reach Gil Thomas, who I was talking with when we were getting started. Gil Thomas is the traffic calming manager for NDOT, and he's very helpful and would be happy to help anyone that can't access the ballot online. What else about that? So it's property. I don't think Chickasaw has any of these, but a lot of streets we have, like cross streets that might have an address on a side street, but they have frontage on the street that's getting the traffic calming, and those properties also have a vote. So I'll go back to the plan to talk about this a little. So I'm showing on the plan the always stop in the middle at Montgomery, and those other red dots are just showing the stop signs at the ends of the street, one at Delmas and one at the end of Chickasaw at Jones. And then between Jones and Montgomery, in kind of like the lower sort of valley area, we think we can put a set of speed cushions. And the addresses on here, if you can't read them, it's basically between 723 and 725 on the north side of Chickasaw, and pretty much directly in front of 724. Yes.
My
There's a
question
question.
is, how did you attain the data function?
The speed data?
Yes, how did you attain that?
So the question is, how did we obtain the speed data on Chickasaw? What we do is we have these tubes that we lay across the road, and they're there for at least a 24-hour period, and it measures the speed and the volume based on the wheel hits on it.
Okay. Ronnie and I went online to the Nashville hub, and we initiated and got one of those monitors to capture the speed, but we didn't hear anything back.
The speed trailer
Yes,
that flashes speed, kind of like what's on Jones, but it's a trailer.
correct.
Yes,
We didn't receive any data back, information back. from
Right.
the hub.
hmm
So I was wondering how was all this information obtained?
So those, until here recently, I don't know how long ago that was.
It's been a while.
It's been a while.
It's fallen off.
So, until recently, and even still, those devices don't collect data. They are used to just alert drivers of what the speed is, what their speed is, and flash at them and tell them to slow down. But those, would not have collected any speed data. Now, I think, in the future, we might have some that collect, speed data, but that has not been the case in the past. They were just used as deterrence and education to remind people to slow down or,
Next question.
yes.
From Montgomery to, you've got 2 speed bumps. That's going up the hill. Why
Right.
don't you have more going down? It's a longer distance from Montgomery to Jones, and you got one at the bottom of the hill. I've been calling once a week for a year to Metro about speeding,
Mm-hmm.
and most of the speeding before we initiated to get the stop sign in Montgomery, it was 90 miles per hour down the street. So most of the speeding now is from Montgomery to Jones. You only have one speed. So how is that analysis gonna be different from coming down the hill from Milton?
Yeah, I understand what your concern and question is. In case anyone couldn't hear it on the call, the question is, why is there only one set of speed cushions between Jones and Montgomery Avenue? And the reason is really because of driveways. We had to look hard to find a place where we could get 15 feet away from driveways on both sides of the cushion device. So essentially, we need spacing between driveways that's, more than 37 feet. And the reason we try to keep them away from driveways is we don't want people backing out onto the cushion, so we're trying to achieve that spacing from driveways. So that, and there was one other place we could put it, but it was right next to the other one, the one where we've located it. So that really became kind of a challenge in citing where these could go. And also, some of the grade, we can't put it on grade that's greater than 8%.
Is that the
Can I
only,
jump in? Sorry.
Yes.
is that the only method of speed breakers that you have? Because I've went through other streets and they have 4x6 speed bumps on their streets. I just recently went to my dentist's office in Antioch, and there were not a vast area for speed break. It was just like a 4x6. So is there a selection that can be available to this neighborhood?
So the smallest device we do are the speed cushions, and those are 7 feet long. And they're 6 feet wide, and they go in the pairs, the two. I'm gonna zoom back here to that picture. But this is kind of the configuration that they do. So those are the
You're saying there's
shortest.
no other brands?
Not in our toolbox that our program does. We have longer devices like the tables that I showed, but those wouldn't be something we would put on a street the size of Chickasaw because of the volume and so forth.
How well do these work for trucks? Because that's one of our problems is we get big down that tiny road flying down.
Mm-hmm.
These look like a truck, or less, you know?
The question was about trucks and how did these devices handle trucks? And, they're rated for roads. So, if they get torn up by trucks or something like that,
But I mean,
it would be a maintenance issue. Are they effective? Right, right. They will probably
what-
have some effect, but maybe not, as much as passenger cars.
That's one of the biggest issues we have on Chickasaw is the trucks coming from the Nashville plywood and from all the construction headed toward Gallatin and coming down Chickasaw here at a really high rate of speed. And these are big trucks. And how would this affect the trucks in slowing them?
Mhm. We think it'll affect them to some degree to slow them down. They do have wider wheelbases, so they may not be as affected as passenger cars. But we can, we can monitor that if we end up with the speed cushions and if it's not a
not as much as
problem.
we want them to.
Right, right. And, putting them in series, also helps because, they're having to navigate them over a period of, over the distance. Yes.
Reference to that,
Mm-hmm.
we are a residential area. Why are those trucks coming through a residential area where they can go down Galveston Road and get to the plywood place just as easy as we keep it instead of coming flying down Chickasaw?
And they do fly down through Chickasaw. They come from Nashville plywood and from all of that stuff on Gallatin, and they come down through here, and they're hauling as they come down through here. It's ridiculous.
It's not only plywood, it's beer trucks, Coca-Colas. and-
Yep, yep.
and everything.
Beer truck, go.
This is a major cut through. They use this as a major cut through from Gallatin to Trinity.
Right.
That's
And-
it.
And that's why we're here, is to help with that. I can't say that we're going to deter the trucks entirely, but with these devices, we think they'll slow
In the
down.
book, someplace it says that a tractor trailer is not supposed to come into a residential area like that.
You could reach out to the hub, and you probably have about it, but that would be where that would be where I would start.
They come out, put a sign up, but that's.
Hmm.
They even got a weight limit on it.
A weight limit?
I have a question in the chat asking, are we rated for semi-truck traffic?
That's a good question.
We'll look
Oh,
at,
there
we'll look at that.
there was a weight limit on the bridge coming from the plywood place across Ellington onto Chickasaw. And when I complained about that, they upped the weight limit on the bridge and to allow the trucks to come on. But they were violating the weight limit on that bridge, and then they changed the sign.
If you look at that bridge, it looked like it's gonna fall down.
Correct. That would stop our flow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
And then you got all
really can't
all the
answer
new-
those questions.
And let me say, I appreciate so much what you're doing. Oh my gosh, thank you so much for what you're doing. This is wonderful, and we appreciate the attention that we're getting here. And yeah, we need it, and we do need this traffic calming process here in our little neighborhood. Thank you.
That's the question.
Yes.
You haven't thought, no one said anything about the future of Chickasaw. Once the city opens up Chickasaw, all those new condos. And I think y'all guys said there was going to be 100 residents.
Yeah, it's a big.
It's a big thing.
At 9:05.
And the train stops on the track like every day.
Mhm. Yes.
And
So-
So if the traffic is gonna increase, more,
Yes.
exponentially.
Sure. And that's why, it's not why we're here. We're here based on existing conditions, but, these devices, could hopefully, slow that traffic down before it starts happening. And identify the road as a slow residential street.
I think actually having the two on the other side of Montgomery will help because that's where.
That's where the traffic
So,
is.
so hopefully that'll calm that side down more.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
About the signs in the, like, are those going in the grass of, 'cause I'm like right there.
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
what is that?
That's great. A great question about the signs. They are warning signs, and I've kind of noted about where they would be at the speed cushion. So they're
Like,
there right in line or right in front of. I mean, we're gonna have to cite them based on where the driveways are. We're not gonna, stick them in your driveway or on top of your mailbox or something like that. So they may be right in line with it because, again, it's really tight on getting these devices between driveways.
So what you're saying there, they're gonna be in a place where the sidewalks are supposed to be?
They would be there. If sidewalks are built on Chickasaw, then they'll deal with that then.
Kind of zoom, not right now, but could I like zoom into that picture more exactly? Is that pretty much where it would be exactly?
Right, right. So the other, I don't think I saw the other one, or I don't think I said the addresses of the other one. So if you can't read that, the other set is right in front of 910 and 911. And then the set furthest east is at 922 and 923.
Would that affect like parking in front of the house?
No, I mean, most of the parking is kind of on the edge, right?
Yeah, just like on the edge of the street, but we.
Right.
Like on the street.
A little bit on the street.
So I guess I'm just. Sign. Because it affects me directly.
Right.
Obviously.
We can,
Yeah.
as long as the signs are, visible before you get to them, we can look at that and place them, maybe one parcel, one house in front. So
Yeah.
they may say speed cushions ahead or something like that instead. Exactly. It's just like, what a stop sign is on. Exactly. And they say, the advisory speed. Mhm. Did you have a question?
No, I was just wondering if it was illegal for them to throw it like that on these songs.
No.
We got some papers that's got plenty of parking. It only is.
Mhm. Yeah, it's not illegal, based on the street width.
I
Mhm.
went to see them the other day, guy that hit the on the street. He come so close, big coming. And I was hoping it would.
One thing on this plan I did not, identify is the, refurbishing of the center line. We noted, in our site visit that it's kind of gone now. And putting that back kind of gives that alignment of where you're supposed to be driving in the width of the street. So we could do that as well with this plan. On the bridge, there used to be, I think it's faded and gone, but like a white stripe that kind of narrows the bridge. The bridge is really wide. That's probably where people are starting to pick up their speed. So if we could put that white line back and make those those drivers feel constrained. I noticed that too. That's like traffic calming. He noted there's potholes on the bridge. But if we can, narrow that and start to make drivers feel tight and constrained a little bit with that narrowing, we could do that as well.
That's got a weight limit on that bridge.
Mhm.
It's traffic trailers.
What if they adjusted through?
So are there other thoughts about this plan and what we're,
Signage at property lines, so those signs will be placed kind of right on the property line, so hopefully not right in front of your house or anything.
that's a great point, Gail. Thank you.
What about driveway, property line?
Yeah, there's a lot of driveways at property lines on your street on Chickasaw.
TOP doesn't matter for the sign, it's just the speed.
Right, it's not for the sign cushion.
Is there any plans in the future or being talked about, whatever it's already just sidewalks? I know the traffic, walking traffic.
Mhm.
Changed.
I'm not aware of sidewalk on Chickasaw, but you could certainly put a request into the hub and ask about that, or reach out to the walk and bike manager with NDOT about it. But there's also on Metro's websites, there's some maps that show what the capital projects are, and sidewalks are included in that. So if there's a sidewalk, that's already been identified, it would show up on some of those plans.
What about white lines along the sides of Chickasaw, like where the edge is? Again, you've got the center line and you've got like little
Mhm.
white lines. Is there anything like that you can do?
I think we could. We often don't do it when the street is
So narrow.
already narrow, and we did feel like the center line was a better fix on this one, particularly because there already was one previously. And yeah, we're usually trying to put the white lines where we're trying to either make a shoulder
Yeah.
or something like that, to narrow the width down to 20 feet or 21 feet. We're already at that point. I know it's narrow,
Very narrow.
but I do think that, giving that guidance with the center line and these few devices on the street are not going to be so burdensome for you all residents to live there, but I think it will help slow that cut through traffic down.
And hurt. Right.
Right.
Can't get any worse.
Get another question about the narrowness of the street, because it is very narrow. And we have a lot of cars that just park on the side of the street. A lot of folks just really take advantage of the sides of the street, and there seems to be no enforcement about that. Is that, and which causes, if you're coming up Chickasaw and there's a car in the middle of the lane, and you've got to cross over coming up a hill into an opposing lane of traffic and take a risk on getting hit. And yet there seems to be lack enforcement of any traffic rules on the street.
I think that parking on the street is legal. So that's not really, I guess, an enforcement issue if it's already legal. In traffic calming world, we kind of think that on-street parking slows cars down that are driving by because they have to negotiate around them.
Except for when they're blocking the moving lane of traffic, which causes you to move into an opposing lane of traffic, coming up a hill, being forced with possibly being faced with a head-on. But okay.
So,
Another question.
I have a question too.
wonderful. Let's go with the speaker.
Okay, hey, I have a question in regards to how loud are these when they're like basically flown over?
I would recommend you
Someone
go
whose
check them
house
out, and I can't really describe it, I don't think,
is
but
concerned with like construction vehicles like hitting it, like I don't, someone whose
Mhm.
house is gonna be in front of.
yeah, that would be something you might want to think about. They do have some audible noise to them. I just don't know that I could adequately explain it, but I certainly recommend you go stand by some, or walk a little bit away from some and see what they sound like. But
My
yeah,
concern's like the one at 910, 911, that's at the bottom of the hill, basically, and people tend to like pick up speed if they're going down the hill and run through the stop sign.
Yep.
So that's really where I'm coming from.
right. So we're trying to use these in tandem with the always stop. If we slow them down on both approaches, to the stop sign. You know, they're having to slow down already, so slow down and stop at the stop sign, and just hopefully travel at a consistent 20 to 25 mile per hour speed, which is what is 25 is what's posted on the street, and that's what's more appropriate for residential streets. But yeah, I understand your concern about that.
Yeah, it just seems like that, like pretty much is one of the primary areas where the speed increase, because I hear people revving their cars up, like literally.
Sure.
So just
So we think they're really uncomfortable to drive faster than 20 over. So I think you're going to find that folks slow down as they travel over them because they're not very comfortable at too much faster than that. They are rubber. They're not made of asphalt. You know, they're rubber, so they do absorb some of that impact and noise, though, because of that.
do you find that these cause any sort of I don't know, drivers to lose control or something? Just saying, because there's like a ditch right there too.
I think we can't hear you as well anymore, Kendall.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. I was just wondering, because right where that is going to go, like 910, 911, there's a ditch there too that's rather deep. Is that sort of a concern?
Not really. I mean, it's sort of getting to it's flat there, and that's what we're kind of looking for. You know, if that's the place where they're really speeding up, it's because, you know, they've just left the all-way stop and they're starting to pick up their speed as they go up the hill. So this device, and they'll be able to see it from the stop sign. They'll be able to see the sign, the warning sign, the speed cushion sign, and the device. So there's really no reason to go much faster to then have to slow down again. So we think it, you know, I think it will keep drivers from doing that, rev up their speed to get up the hill. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I've witnessed the stop sign running like a ton too. So that's kind of like where I guess I feel like the focus should be.
Yeah, and that's the thing about these. They are physical devices in the street. You know, some people like to try to put one wheel on and one wheel off. You know, we see that all the time, and that's going to happen. In my experience, driving over them, if you hit them, you know, straight on, that's the most comfortable way to drive over them. Because I think they really are more impactful if you've kind of got an imbalance on your car. That's just my experience.
Do you have any that are around here that we could go test out?
Yes. Trying to think where they are. I should know that.
They make Riverside.
Do you know Gibson Drive? That's in Madison, so it's kind of far. I will get back to you on that. I'm trying to think of some in East Nashville, and we have some that are going to be going in on Rosedale. You're familiar with Rosedale, right over here on the other side of Montgomery. Those have been approved by the neighborhood. They did the petition format. That street is planned to be paved. They've got the construction paving signs out. So when the paving is finished, which should be sometime soon, since they've got their signs out to start, when the paving is finished, those speed cushions will go in.
Did Montgomery get approved too, or they're still waiting on their petition?
Petition, yes,
Will they go into the new petition process?
I believe so.
I think that was a hold up, yeah.
Yeah, that was some experience we had with many neighborhoods. Going to the old way was you needed 70% of property owners on the street to sign a petition, and it just really lagged out a long time and was hard for some neighbors to do, especially longer streets and so forth. So we're excited about this new balloting format to show support for the project. And get these projects done so people will drive slower on your street. So talking about the ballot, and I'll put our contact information if you want to jot that down. That's my my contact information, Amy Birch, and then Gil Thomas, the program manager at NDOT, who's also on the call. Our contact information. And then, so I think, you know, we'd like to hear if there's any changes you want to make to the plan, or we like the plan, we want to move forward. Do you want to have another meeting to discuss the plan, or we want to move into the final? So we've got some folks in the room shaking heads, wanting to move ahead with the balloting process. Anybody on the chat box saying anything?
We want to move ahead with the balloting plan. Yeah.
All right. Well, then I think we'll aim to do that. On our concept here, we're showing, you know, this is concept only. We've got some finer details to work out on the plan. And so, you know, things might shift here or there, but the general concept is speed cushions in these locations with the signage and everything. But I just wanted to make note of that.
Great hearing all of your feedback. We'll definitely look into some of those issues further that were brought up tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Get a copy.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yes.
I see where right on stuff right there.
Mm-hmm.
And that would kind of dictate where I'm feeling.
Sure. We can share that with you. Absolutely. After the meeting, we can exchange.
That's something that's on the ballot.
And that's a great question, and a great point. With the ballot, the question was, are the plans associated with the ballot? Yes. When you get your QR code and your ballot, it will also have link to the plan, and you'll be able to zoom in. They will have more details on this. They will, you know, you'll be able to zoom in more to see that. And so, yes, that gives everyone the opportunity that is going to vote on the ballot to know what they're voting for.
Will we see it again if you said this is concept only and they could potentially get reallocated?
You will see it again.
Before the ballot?
With the ballot.
With the ballot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You have 6 weeks to vote.
Oh, no, but say they decided to move that somewhere else and now it's in somebody else's yard and they may have the same concerns.
Sure.
We'd see it when it's final before the ballot.
We would be happy to send that plan to you and share that as well, if you all have contact information. And anyone else that wants it, of course, but I know that we have your contact information. So it sounds like we're, yes.
If for any reason the ballot doesn't pass, is that kind of it for the street?
It would be it for vertical measures. So we ballot for vertical measures on the street, like the speed cushions or speed tables or the traffic circles, but we don't typically need a ballot, or we don't need a ballot for radar feedback signs. So, you know, we might look at the street if it fails and see if there's something like more paint on the street or signage that's not in the roadway. But
you re-petition or no, it's kind of one and done?
yeah, it's kind of a one-time thing. You could reapply, I guess, if it fails and go that route.
What's happening?
How it's working?
Yeah.
Yeah, we could.
How is that typical?
It's not, I mean, we don't do it with all of our streets because we just, I mean, we're collecting data on lots of streets all the time. But if it's, you know, some sort of issue you're seeing with it, you could reach out to the hub and maybe that we could do that then. We are in the process of doing some data collection on streets that have these devices so that we can do some before after analysis and have better data for you all to say how how much speed we could expect to be reduced with these devices and what's typical here in Nashville. So we do periodically measure the after condition.
Anything gotta help.
That's right. All right. I think we're closing out the meeting then. If there's nothing else online, we will move forward with the balloting, and we will, you know, if anything changes on the plan, we'll you'll see it on the ballot, but I don't expect anything would be major based on what we've heard and talked about. But on that plan, you'll be able to see more where the signs would go too.
You'll have to slow down. Let's right from not.
Which end are you on?
On the others too.
All right. Well, I think we're done then. I'll stick around if anybody has any other questions, but don't want to take too much of your evening.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have a general idea of where?
Thank you.
Thank you.